Welcome to the Advanced Persistent Security Podcast, where we discuss the world of IT and cybersecurity. Don't be left in the dark about what's going on in the world around you. Here is your host, Joe Gray.
Hello and welcome. This week we will be discussing T-Mobile Verizon Android device LTE security vulnerability, Congress pushing a revamped CISPA law, and CIA director hacked by a teenager. So to start out with the T-Mobile Android device LTE security vulnerability, Carnegie Mellon University and CERT database has published a new vulnerability for this. It affects the long-term evolution LTE mobile networks. The issue was first brought up by security researchers in South Korea. The security hole, if not patched, can use a peer-to-peer network to retrieve data from the victim's phone, conduct targeted eavesdropping on somebody, or do a denial of service attack. Solely in theory. It's based on the session initiation protocol that also eats up bandwidth and can clog the network. ZDNet is reporting that Apple products are not affected and that Android devices are the only ones, and they are at highest risk on T-Mobile and Verizon. AT&T has not conducted full testing, but probably at risk. They were notified on May 21st, 2015 of the vulnerability, and T-Mobile is the only one reporting that the issue has been resolved. It affects only the Android community and not necessarily just cell phones. It can affect tablets as well. Hopefully, now that it's been brought to light, resolutions can occur. So it's been almost 5 months ago and nothing has been resolved. That's rather troubling, but this echoes what we have talked about in the mobile device sector in the previous weeks, that they just really don't get in a hurry to fix anything. If a hacker were to gain access, they could retrieve data from the phones or spoof phone numbers and make calls, which could create a lot of headache. All Android users should keep an account they access from their phone in any activity to make sure that you are the sole initiator. When available, you should use two-factor authentication for that extra layer of protection. For other information regarding the vendors patching their networks, be sure to check in with the Carnegie Mellon University CERT vulnerability note, which is on our website under advancedpersistentsecurity.net/blog. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be discussing Congress trying to push a new version of CISPA.
Are you looking for a place to advertise to the unique audience of IT security professionals and enthusiasts? Look no further. Advanced Persistent Security is seeking sponsors. This slot could be yours. Contact sales at advancedpersistentsecurity.net for more information.
Thanks for sticking around through the break. Now to discuss the revamped version of CISPA. So Congress is back in the business of making powerful friends. By powerful friends, I mean powerful enemies. This time via the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, or CISA, not to be confused with the ISACA certification. Effectively, Congress pushes the revamped CISPA, and here's an excerpt verbatim from the Act, from Section 3. Requires the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Justice to develop and promulgate procedures to promote the timely sharing of classified and declassified cyber threat indicators in possession of the federal government with private entities, non-federal government agencies, or state, tribal, and local governments, and the sharing of unclassified indicators with the public, and the sharing of cybersecurity threats with entities to prevent or mitigate adverse effects. It requires notification to be provided to entities within the federal government has shared indicators in error with the contravention of law, and it directs the Director of National Intelligence to submit such procedures to Congress within 60 days of enactment of this act. Probably the two biggest names, the two most vocal names against CISPA are Apple and Dropbox. Apple says that they don't support the current proposal. The trust of their customers means everything to them, and they don't believe security should come at the expense of their privacy. The Business Insider says that it is intended to help facilitate the sharing of companies' data within the U.S. government to prevent and tackle crime. If passed, a U.S. citizen wouldn't be able to sue Google say, using privacy or antitrust laws for passing their data to U.S. law enforcement. It provides immunity from the Freedom of Information Act, making it difficult for someone to find out exactly what information, if any, has been shared with the government. A website called Despite the Future has a scorecard of companies both for and against CISA and other similar laws over the years. Here's some notable supporters and opposition. These all support CISA: Cisco, Facebook, T-Mobile, LinkedIn, HP, IBM, Comcast. These entities oppose CISA: Twitter, Wikipedia, Salesforce, Apple, Dropbox, Google, Yahoo. Obviously, privacy groups such as the Electronic Frontier Foundation are strongly against this, and they already have petitions out with links on our blog. Based on the information that I was able to find, this seems a little bit too Orwellian for my taste, coming from George Orwell writing 1984. I'm all for information sharing between government and private businesses, especially because of the high-profile data breaches we have discussed in recent times, but there should be a way for organizations to opt in or opt out of this without government intervention, coercion, or legislative bullying. Combine this with the fact that NSA has decrypted 1024-bit Diffie-Hellman key exchange and government attempts to compel cryptographers to give them a backdoor for encryption. This means that there's no such thing as security or personal privacy from the government. And coming from me, that's quite a statement, because I typically take a pro-government stance in these types of scenarios, but this is definitely overreach. People have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and they should not fear that their government is spying on them without rhyme, reason, or cause. Understanding that the Patriot Act kind of accomplishes this, but moving away from Patriot Act, either the lawmakers are really trying to go to an Orwellian model, as in 1984, or they have quite a few sponsors with some ulterior motives and something to gain. I'm not sure why it's so quiet, but we will be following this. We intend on posting another blog post about it tomorrow. That is all for this topic. We are going to take a quick break, and then I will come back with a message, take another break, and then we will talk about the CIA director's emails getting hacked by a teenager. As you may recall, last week I talked about a close friend of mine that had committed suicide as a veteran. In the days since then, a few of my friends and I have incorporated into an organization called I Will Not Be 22. This is a nonprofit organization built around creating awareness and prevention for veteran suicides. We are currently trying to raise money to fund some outreach programs that we are collaborating with various organizations on. If you are interested in contributing or checking out the cause, please go to iwillnotbe22.org. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/iwillnotbe22.
Welcome to the Advanced Persistent Security Podcast, where we discuss the world of IT and cybersecurity. Don't be left in the dark about what's going on in the world around you. Here is your host, Joe Gray.
I will post links to all social media and our website on the podcast post.
Don't forget to check out our blog at advancedpersistentsecurity.net/blog. Follow us on Twitter at ADVPersistentSEC and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/advancedpersistentsecurity.
Now for our final topic, the CIA director's email is hacked by a teen. A self-proclaimed hacker by the name of Kraka hacked the personal email accounts of Central Intelligence Agency Director John Brennan. This is quite the embarrassment, and it further shows the state of cyber insecurity for the U.S. government. The teen, who described himself to the New York Post as a non-Muslim teenager who was upset at the government's support of Israel over Palestine in the Middle East. He went on to say that he social engineered Verizon and AOL to give him data required to reset his password, which is a common tactic. The ability for an inexperienced teenager to be able to pull this off on the account of one of the most prominent figures in the intelligence community and security world highlights the problems with storing sensitive data on a public-facing server. This was an email account and not a government email server. It still shows that his security clearance application documents and other personal details were on there and not encrypted. Per Al Jazeera, for Brennan, it was negligence, hubris, or a belief that rules didn't apply to him. Or, of all people, he should know that there's a silent, secret cyber war happening right now involving not just millions, but billions of accounts. All the documents the teenager was able to pull off were dumped onto WikiLeaks, and they have already been publishing everything. We're not posting a link, but you can find it on WikiLeaks if you want to find it. That's all we have for this week. If you like what you heard, give us a 5-star review and love us on iTunes. You can also email us at podcast@advancedpersistentsecurity.net. Take it easy, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the Advanced Persistent Security Podcast. Until next time, stay secure and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast.